Alright! Welcome everyone to Virtually Incorrect. I am Gunter, your host tonight. For those new, Virtually Incorrect is a weekly panel discussion show about virtual reality in virtual reality. Topics interesting to the VR community will be semi-seriously discussed with each week's guest, with nothing off limits. Before we introduce our guests tonight, I want to thank the fantastic Riftmax crew for producing and editing the show, as well as my 4 guests that are here, the folks in the Riftmax audience, and everyone watching via Hitbox and YouTube. I also have a special announcement. On Sunday, May the 18th, I'm going to be doing a 3-hour European-friendly Virtually Incorrect episode. So stay tuned for that at the end of the show, and we'll talk more about the details. All right, so tonight I have a great panel of VR developers, personalities, and enthusiasts here with us. Let's go ahead and meet them. First, on my right, we have the developer of VR Chat, Gaylor.
Hey everybody, I'm super glad to be here. I'm excited. I've been trying to get on Gunner's show, and last week didn't work, but this week seemed to work out well for us.
Yeah, man, it's great to have you. Thanks for being here. Next to him, we have the host of Karaoke Night in Riftmax Theater and developer of VR Open, Tyler Roach. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here, Gunter.
And across the table is Jake Tracey, president of the Australian Virtual Reality Industry Association and facilitator and founder of the Melbourne Meetup in Australia. Welcome.
Hey, Gunter. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Totally. And finally, my last guest is Caine, one of the developers of Riftmax and also the developer of Tales from the Rift. And he also produces this show. Hey, Caine.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thank you all for being here. Before we kick off our first story, I want to announce the Hitbox poll for the show. Do you think VR will have a positive or negative effect on kids? And at the end of the show, we'll share the results. And one more final thing, and there's a lot of announcements. I'm going to go and see Bill Maher tomorrow night. And the reason I bring this up is because the name of the show, Virtually Incorrect, actually came from, inspired from his show, Politically Incorrect from the 90s show. If you haven't seen that, go check him out, and I'm totally stoked. So now it's time to dive into VR discussion portion. All right, well, our first story is Sony Morpheus joins the exhibitors list for the SVVR Conference. There's never been so many consumer VR companies together in one place. Oculus, 6 Sense, Sony, PreVR, Virelia, Seabright. I'm not going to read them all. So many and many more. I'm really excited about this event, and I wanted to bring it up. Here's a couple comments from that thread. One from Clam Chowda. The thing is gonna be epic. I'm lucky to be going. Wish more Redditors could join us. And another comment from Bellardo. This is going to be one hell of a first conference. I usually don't come and pay for them out of pocket, but basically he's making an exception this time, so he'll be seeing everybody there. So what do you guys think of the SVVR conference? I want to go around the table here and get everybody's opinion. Graham, let's start with you.
So I think it's a really cool experience, especially for everybody who hasn't really had the chance to try all these new pieces of hardware yet. They're all in the same spot, all in the same place, and most of us haven't tried anything other than our DK1. So I think it'll be a really cool experience for somebody try to the DK2, go over to Morpheus, go over to GameFace, and really get a full experience of what we're going to see in the next year or so.
Tyler, what do you think of SVVR and what's going on with that?
I think it's a really, really great opportunity for people to experience all of the different types of virtual reality startups that are coming up recently. There have been so many different people that have come up and have all different products and stuff, and I feel like the community, it's a great way for the community to just kind of get experience with different types of technology, and also for them to kind of get mixed up and talk with each other.
Yeah, totally. I mean, cons are great, and it kind of keeps legitimizing this VR, thing that we're into, and it really is a legitimate, business that's, just starting and growing. So I love seeing these things, and cons are really, quite popular these days, and I certainly enjoy going to them, and I'm really sad that I missed this one. Jake, you founded the Melbourne Meetup, so the SVVR Expo really came out of the SVVR Meetup, so I'm sure, this is totally interesting to you. What do you think?
Yeah, I think SVVR is really setting the standard and has provided a really good benchmark for everybody else to run events and now a conference. And I think, like you just said, it does legitimize the industry in a big way. And it also provides a platform for people to kind of bring the startups that they've been working on and exchange ideas and get some kind of investment and money in the industry, which I think is it's been a long time coming now that everybody that's had DK1s has kind of had a good year now to experience the Rift, but actually starting to form some actual businesses out of VR experiences is going to become a major thing. And SVVR is really setting the standard for how things like this should be run.
Yeah,
they're doing an incredible job.
It's pretty incredible. Just the list there of I think I heard some podcasts with Carl and him talking about starting it up, a while ago, and if you could get, the people to come, then it would, it possibly could happen, but, could he actually get people to do a conference this early on? And boy, it's pretty spectacular to see how it's come along so far. Caine, let's hear your thoughts.
I'm a bit jealous that I can't go. It's absolutely amazing lineup. I'd love to be there and trying some of this new devices, prototypes, and just getting a chance to meet some of the people in person that you read about, hear about. Be amazing experience. But I mean, for a first try, I think they're going to hit it out of the park, and it can only grow from there.
Yeah, exactly. Just want to read a couple more comments that were from that post. This should happen in VR itself, and that was by Golg Hupf. That's a little difficult to read. And basically, so the rest of the world can participate, so we can relate to that. And Everyday posted, I'm going to take freely licensed photos and video of many of the exhibits and attendees as I possibly can in the allotted time. So hopefully that'll help some of you feel like you're there even if you can't be. So what do you guys think? Think we could do a conference in VR? Tyler?
Yeah, during the event, definitely. I feel like if you guys have enough people, which we probably will, we could definitely have a good conference. We could talk about what's happening while it's happening, and get everyone's perspective, which is definitely important.
Yeah, I love the idea. Graham, what do you think?
An idea that I think would work really well is, I don't know if Riftmax supports it, but if you were to have, a conference going on in here for the people that can't travel, and then a conference going on in the real world, and then, someone, I guess like Bruce or whoever's, at the conference, maybe stream some things and project it up on a wall or something, just so you can kind of have the two interact. I think that'd be really neat.
What do you think, Caine? This is a great place to host something like that.
It's funny. I had the same thought when I saw the post, and I actually sent a message to Carl on Reddit, offering up to have a theater going and have people kind of pop in and connect that way. I imagine it just probably got buried in a pile of messages, but yeah, it was something that occurred to me kind of immediately, and we'd love to host it.
It's still worth doing, I think, to connect some people. Some of the virtual folks get to kind of join in on a little bit and talk to the people that are actually there. I think it's novel and, should be attempted. And Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Riftmax is a perfect platform to run kind of VR conferences. It's kind of, the fact that we're doing this talk show in Riftmax is pretty incredible to me. What I would like to see is streams of the discussions and talks that happen at the conference would be incredible. And maybe bring them into Riftmax somehow, so we can all watch and kind of sit down and view like a panel discussion at the conference and all kind of interact while that's happening.
Yeah, we have Mike, who's the lead developer on this, has been working super hard on getting web browser integration going. So that's something that's, very, very possible soon. It'd be a great way to connect with the people who aren't able to actually go out to the conference and connect this way.
All right, we're going to move on to the next topic. We've been talking about that for a while, and that is Google Glass's lead electrical engineer, Adrian Wong, defects to Oculus. And this is posted by Oculus Boy. System Ghost also commented that this is basically going to be one hell of a bag of tools. So maybe some of you guys could, do a better job at paraphrasing that for me. Graham, have you read that article?
So I read through it. I didn't pay too close attention to what the actual patents were and everything. I just do, this isn't unexpected. With the Facebook backing, Oculus now has pretty much all the money in the world to get who they need. And that's the biggest thing, they are able to hire, whomever they need to make an amazing product, and that's something that a lot of these other hardware makers don't have. Sony has the foundation for it, but I don't know. I haven't really looked into it, but I don't know the names of the people working on the hardware. The Game Face guys are great, and as well as every other piece of hardware out there. But these, Oculus is just able to hire the best of the best, and they're taking people from everywhere. Not only do they take from Google, which is actually expected because it is a hardware thing, but there's another article saying they just took the art director from 343, from the Halo 4 series, which is a little bit more unexpected, because until now we weren't really sure that Oculus was doing first-party content, but with that acquirement, they probably are. But like I said, I mean, it's not surprising that they're or not surprising that they're bringing in all these people.
No, it totally makes sense. Anybody?
Yeah, they're kind of assembling the A team.
Yeah, go, Jake. We'll come to you, Tyler.
Yeah, well, I think with Carmack coming on board, that was kind of the beginning of the best team of all time. And, they kind of had so much passion, and there's so much goodwill behind VR right now that everybody's doing it because it's something that we've all wanted for a long time. And they can attract the kind of talent that, does things for a passion project rather than just for monetary gain. And, they will find the best talent out there. And that's kind of what they're doing now. And it's cool. Like, the 343 guy, a lot of people didn't think that Oculus was going to make first-party content or attempt to try to do the Metaverse, but I think it's becoming a little more obvious now with the talent that they've acquired. Oculus potentially will make the Metaverse a reality rather than, a third party.
Anybody else? Tyler, you're next.
Yeah, I think that they have to definitely hire these people because, in the 90s with Virtual Boy, as we all know, virtual reality kind of failed. And I think now, we believe in it so much and we have the technology that we need to get the best people on board. And, Oculus, the Kickstarter was, they got $2 million, in one night, as we all know. And I guess they need to do everything possible in order to succeed, just to make sure that they can reach out to a wide audience. And, having these people on board is definitely going to help them do that.
Yeah, and Tetraline says, the amount of talent following Oculus, is really impressive and speaks volume about their company. And so it's really interesting to see this all play out. Anybody have any other thoughts on that? Might be a good time to maybe segue into the Metaverse. I had that a little further down the list, and both VR chat and also Riftmax are sort of in the realm of Metaverse. It's definitely, I consider a lot of VR social is what I call the experience. And let's just talk about the future of Metaverse and being a smaller scale operation versus some of these bigger things that we've seen with sort of with of course Facebook and with like high fidelity as being another one. Your opinions on that? Let's start with Caine.
I don't think that you're going to see one solution to a metaverse anytime soon. I think you're going to see a lot of different varieties of things that each kind of offering a different experience, and especially with technology kind of finding its way for ideal VR inputs. I think you're going to find programs like High Fidelity that support different aspects that may or may not catch on wide scale. Somebody might find a better solution, but there's a value to all these different approaches, I think, and it's going to take some time, but I think probably over time you're going to see things converge into like a clear favorite. But I think for at least the near term we're going to see a lot of different approaches, and that's great because people will learn from each other and things will only get better that way.
Yeah, I totally, agree with more is better. But it's going to be interesting to see how these, grow. I mean, I even am so interested in just seeing how we grow up in these applications, and then eventually being able to express ourselves in so many more, ways. And I'm going to remember meeting some of you folks from back in these days, and that we will actually basically become more high fidelity to each other, and then just kind of know more about each other. We know how each other kind of moves a little bit, and just little nuances that make up a character of a person. And so I'm really, interested in all this kind of VR social, and it really is these metaverses. Jake, some comments on this?
Yeah, look, more competition is always good, and a clear market leader will emerge eventually. But it's always good to have people with different approaches, and I guess we're just going to... I think the issue with the Rift at the moment is that it's really kind of disconcerting to have to bounce back out to Windows or to Mac OS 10. Creating an environment where you don't have to leave the Rift in order to go into other applications is probably the main thing that nobody's kind of done yet.
Sort of like an
so when somebody
system.
does achieve that... Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's really weird to kind of go back out and your eyes get all messed up if you're still in the Rift, so you basically got to take it off. When somebody does come up with a way to browse applications inside the Rift, they'll probably, that will probably be the beginning of the metaverse.
That's an interesting thought on how that would be the sparking thing to really make being in VR probably so valuable to everybody that then it'll help spark that. Interesting. Tyler, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Actually, I created a prototype called the Rift Zone. It's definitely just very early, but it shows you the ways that you can actually go inside of games while you're in virtual reality. Say you walk up to a different arcade machine and you say, oh, let's go into this application, let's go into this application. So yeah, basically just, it makes it so much easier not having to take your Rift off every 5 seconds to do different things.
Yeah, it's super important. So, Graham, what do you think of Metaverse? You're building VR chat and different features come online, every few weeks or so. I'm sure you've thought about this. Your thoughts?
So one of the biggest things I think it comes down to when we talk about the Metaverse is it's possible for one company to create something, something as large as Facebook and Oculus. Yes, they could create a platform that works very well, but I really do think it comes down to the community and custom content. Look at the internet today. Most of it is made up of, custom content from everybody like us. So I think somebody right now who does a very good job of that is the Firebox/Janus team. They make it very easy for normal people to create content for VR. And I think, I hope that's actually, the direction it goes in. I think if, whoever, maybe creates the platform for individuals to create content, a very good platform, something that's, fully customizable, people can do whatever they want, and then just basically, have connections between all of these, web pages or virtual rooms or whatever, you have it. I think that's a plausible direction, and also just gives, it's, you kind of, once you have that platform there, you just kind of sit back and relax, and everybody else does the work for you.
Yeah.
Plus, it's ever expanding too. And you don't have to have all the ideas, and you don't have all the ideas. There's a lot of people with great, concepts and things they want to build, and, why not let them do it?
Of course, the trade-off is that's complex and difficult, and, I'm sure that's why you brought on Jesse, your co-developer.
Of course, well, if it's not complex and difficult, then, why do it?
Sure. So that made me kind of think of something. Like both Riftmax and VR Chat are doing similar things basically by expanding in that way. But I do see Riftmax doing this curated sort of thing that we have going on here, and so I think that's something that, of course, interests me. That's why I'm here doing a show, and I'm really interested in getting pre-OVR and being able to be a virtual actor or of some sort of thing, whatever that would be, and try out participating in VR projects and software in that sort of way. I love the virtual camera work that you see going on here. So I thought that was an interesting difference between the two. Okay, well, we've talked about the Metaverse. Enough. Any other final comments before I moved on to another story? Next story. We are still on track for July. Cyber Reality provides impromptu update. Good to know. So it was posted by Straight Grizzly, and basically it's a quote. The reason we have not made an update regarding the release date is because nothing has changed in that regard. So that's super awesome to hear. And Tycho says cyber reality is, in just case, basically for those that don't know, is a part of the Oculus team. And Mano Cheese says I may have to freeze myself until July. So it's great to hear there's no problems. What do you guys think? Do you think this is realistic that we're still going to get it by July? And can you wait or not? Caine.
I remember the wait for DK1 was pretty painful.
Yes,
so I'd like to think it won't be as bad this time around from that perspective. But it's great to hear that things are still on track. And I think we're all looking forward to getting that. Does everybody have one ordered here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. First day.
Right on. Tyler, what do you think, man?
Well, I definitely am happy with that news since I broke my Rift sensor last night. During karaoke, I was jumping around and my control box was jumping on the floor, so I'm definitely not going to be doing that ever again. Learned my lesson. But yeah, I'm excited for the DK2. I've seen videos on it, and I actually remember when I saw the video of it, I stayed home from school because I faked being sick. Don't tell my parents. And
Right on.
I went on my computer and I saw that the DK2 was happened to be out, and I looked at the features and I was just like, wow, like this is such an improvement from DK1. And if virtual reality is going to be a thing, I think DK2 is going to be the one thing that people need to look at.
Yeah, man, I cannot wait. And Graham, what do you think about this? Posting about it already and the release date. Is this hopeful?
I do think it's hopeful. The reassurance is nice. I'll definitely say the wait for the DK1 will be harder than the DK2. I have my DK1 to keep me happy until then, and since I am in development, I'm more focused on that than waiting to try out some new products. Although I am very excited to get my hands on one. I still have yet to test anything higher res than what I currently have. Of course, the way that these things go is okay. They make an announcement. I'm really excited about VR. Okay, do all this cool stuff, and then it kind of dies down, and then I get an email in my inbox that DK2 pre-orders are available, and I nearly break my glasses, trying to get to the computer and pre-order it.
Yeah.
But it's definitely good news. I'm excited to get my hands on it. Implement some new stuff for VR chat, and it'll definitely be cooler, especially for me. I get sick really easily in the Rift, so having some higher res and some additional tracking will make my life a little bit easier.
Yeah, that's going to be huge for that. And actually, it was just a couple weekends ago. One of my friends is still trying Rift demos. He doesn't really like it because he gets sick, but he had some fun. But then he ended up horking in the backyard, so it wasn't very fun. Jake, what do you think about this?
Yeah, no news is good news. I'm terrible at waiting for things, like pre-ordering things. So the less that I hear about the DK2, the less that I think about it. So I'd rather just, it arrives on my doorstep and I'll be happy.
Excellent. So we got our next topic, 3D video capture with 3 Kinects. So a couple comments from that post, and then we'll go around and get the guest's opinion. My mind was fucking blown when he stepped out of his body. And that was by Black Otter. And another comment is Rirath. A part of that amazes me that I haven't seen mentioned so far is the swivel chair. Think about it. The chair was real. Nothing special was done to get it to appear in the scene. It was simply there in the frame because this is simply video. There's a lot of possibilities there. Anything that you have on or near you, with you, will be part of the teleconference. Once the resolution is higher, you could show real-world objects in 3D to move people far away without lengthy digitizing process, for example. And just one more comment. Digi1 Life says, I would love it so I don't have to, 1, drive to the airport, 2, sit in a cramped plane for 3 hours, 3, take a cab to an office, and 4, have an hour-long meeting. And I would add boring meeting in my case. So, panelists, what do you think? Let's start off with Graham.
That's, a different path to, input in VR are cameras such as the Kinect. A lot of people have been able to do some really cool stuff with the Kinect. If you throw in 2 Kinects, 3 Kinects, 4 Kinects, you're going to get a lot better system. Up until, all this new tech has arrived, what people have done in the past and what labs have done, and I guess, military simulations as well has been, they have tons and tons of motion capture cameras set up. That's essentially what the Kinects are acting as, just low-cost motion capture cams. When the Kinect 2 comes out for development, obviously that will boost the level of immersion we can get with that as well. Maybe only one K2 will equal 3K or 3K1s. Obviously you won't get the angles, but the level of detail will be there. So I'm really excited. As soon as that dev kit comes out, I'm getting my hands on that and seeing what I can implement there. So
yeah, that's awesome. Now to you, Jake. You ready?
Yeah. Look, I think Kinect is probably the most incredible consumer level technology that is so cheap. Not a lot of people talk about how incredible it is. I don't know if you guys have Xbox Ones, but Kinect 2 is amazing. The stuff that you can do with it, and combining two Kinects. Once the Kinect for Windows 2 comes out in a proper fashion rather than just being a closed beta, I don't really see a need for something like STEM when you have two Kinects. It just is a better, easier solution. There's a lot more applications that you can do with Kinect that you can't do with a STEM kind of system, and the resolution is there now. So yeah, I think Kinect is an amazing technology that really doesn't get enough credit, and I think Microsoft should get a lot of credit for putting it out there at such a kind of affordable price point.
Good point. Caine, what are your thoughts?
The Kinect is absolutely incredible, and it's something that I'd love to experiment more with. But I mean, it's a cool approach because it solves a lot of problems that you would have, with a STEM or a Prio VR. But it also introduces a whole host of other problems, that would be solved by the other approach. So, I don't know that I would say necessarily it's superior at this point. And I think, there's a steep curve for consumers to have multicam setups in their houses like that, even at kind of low-cost Kinect prices. But it's very cool, and I'd love to see where it evolves. But, I think controllers, at least for me, there's something satisfying about, having a controller when it's well-designed. And, I'd like to see more of what reactive grip is doing with feedback and that type of thing, haptics, which I think is important. And you're obviously not going to get that with a Kinect.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, haptics are super important in these VR social situations. Man, could you imagine getting some feedback and whatnot? Tyler, what do you think of the Kinect and of that Doc Ock's video? I mean, he was able to bring like one a commenter said, a chair into the scene, and then it was there.
Yeah, I really think that's pretty cool. Prio VR and STEM are both very, very cool technologies. Technology is only going to get better. And, the Kinect is very good for the price, like Jake said. I also agree with Caine that Microsoft should get more credit for what they've done, because I think it basically brought people into the VR world at an early stage. And also I like how it can scan different places. Like, say you want to go on a vacation and you want to scan like a place, like an island, and someone else is there and they scan it for you. Like, you can take virtual vacations that way. So yeah, I don't know. There's just so many different uses for it, I guess.
Absolutely, there's some great comments. All right, let's move on to another. It's a Kinect-related topic. It's really fun, actually. Hoverboard VR, Wii Balance Board plus Kinect, posted by Polywriter, and combining the Oculus Rift, Wii Balance Board, and Kinect V1 in Unity 3D works pretty good. But I'll read another comment. Meeplebot says, "Finally, I've always wanted to embody Marty McFly. Looks like a neat demo." And the Rev Kyle says, "Yo, boy, yo, those boards don't walk on water unless you've got power."
I'm tempted to dust off my Wii balance board.
Yeah, I have mine nearby. I haven't tried anything with it. I mean, it's been hard to get through the demos, but I would love to get something like this rigged up, yeah.
Yeah, this one seems like it's worth trying out. Any hardware that kind of simulates some sort of vehicle in VR, I think works pretty well. at the VR lab at my school, there's a friend of mine who's doing a lot of research into that. She has an electric scooter and a torn apart Segway that she's basically using to,
Wow.
you stand on that in the real world, and it simulates to the virtual world, but you're actually moving in the virtual world. So I think that's one step closer to, immersion, especially since we're not really walking around right now. That's why I think that, the space demos and the car demos all work very well, because you're seated usually when you do them.
Yeah, definitely. I think I saw a comment, a demo that was using the Wii balance board for a Segway called SegWii, and that I didn't get to try it, but I wish I had my balance board because it seems pretty cool.
Totally.
Also, I like Matt Stomp's. Matt Stomp's foot controller, Stomps. I feel like,
Me too.
it's a pretty cool idea, concept, and I guess I like the idea of actually using something, in real life, or using your feet, doing something that can translate to motion in virtual reality, because it's just makes it that much more realistic,
Yeah, I totally agree. All right. Next story is Oculus Rift Gameboy emulator in Unity, posted by Finstem, and there's a comment by Nazashi. No, that's probably wrong, but moving on. Out of all the things VR is promising, this is it for me. I imagine coding my living room on a overcast Christmas morning in 2001, sitting down on the couch and turning on my previously unwrapped version of Pokemon Crystal. The hum of a miniature Christmas Y-Town with candy roofs and rotating color schemes, with a hint of winter music filling the house as I just go back and get completely lost in the moment, like it was yesterday again. Thoughts on the Game Boy, Emily? Who thinks this cool, Caine?
I think it's very cool. I'm a child of the 80s, so I grew up with a Game Boy in those kind of formative gaming years. So, I'm really excited to try this out personally. It's cool technology to incorporate into these type of VR experiences, because they're ready-made games that you can already play. Like, I think somebody is mentioning that they'd like to play, the cabinets in here, or this tabletop, and that sort of stuff allows you to bring that in. And, it's not something that requires too much effort to pipe in, so that's another good feature. So I'm really looking forward to trying this one.
Absolutely. Jake, I'm sure you're excited too. Did you grow up in the 80s?
Yeah, man, I had a Game Boy, and I did grow up in the 80s. Look, I think it's awesome. Yeah, I think everybody's just going to say this is really cool, because it just is really cool to be able to play a Game Boy in VR.
Mm-hmm. Tyler, you're a little younger. Did you ever play a Game Boy? Is this something that's interest to you, or is it really something that's towards our generation?
Yeah, I did not. I played a Game Boy Color. That was my first Game Boy, and then I had a Game Boy Advance. But I do think it's a really cool idea. I actually tried the SNES one, and that's pretty awesome. But yeah, it's just being able to try all different experiences in VR and seeing what works and what doesn't is pretty important. So that definitely is a pretty cool feature.
Yeah, totally. And one more comment, and then Graham, I'll get yours, from my non-porn Oculus account. And awesome as it looks, you guys have to admit how ridiculous this is. We're essentially using a $300 HMD hooked up to a 1K rig to emulate playing a $30 handheld console off eBay in a virtual environment. Not knocking it, it's just, if you think about it, it's kind of silly. Think it's silly, Graham?
Yeah, in a sense, you could call it silly. I do think there's a lot more potential for it as well. We've talked about this whole, social VR stuff, and I think there's room for that too. You get I walk over to that, I'm pointing at that Mrs. Pac-Man machine over there, but you even have 2 players over there. You can go, actually, I don't know if you can do 2-player Miss Pac-Man, but over at the Joust arcade machine, you have 2 players walk over there and, start playing with each other. I think that leads to a lot of, really cool concepts and ideas, things to do. One of the things we have now, in VR chat and Riftmax, is, we come in, we can talk. In Riftmax, you can watch movies, which is kind of a big one. But there's, besides that, you have all these things in there, and it really changes the experience because, you're going from something where you absolutely need other people to something that it's okay to, hang out by yourself and play games for a little while you wait for your friends to come join you. And that's, I think, one of the cooler concepts that we've taken from Ready Player One is, having your own room with your TV, your arcade games, your Game Boy, hanging in there on your own. Your friends pop in, and then you start playing those together.
Cool. Any other thoughts on the Game Boy, or shall we move on? All right, I'll take silence as we move on. A couple more stories. The next one is AR Drone 3 Bebop gets Oculus Rift support, posted by Hadsteck, and there's some interesting comments here. One by KenChan68. I'd like to see it with dual camera, totally. And one from Singularity87. I don't want to put a downer on this, but I think it's really suitable for VR telepresence. Will never move one-to-one with your head movement. It will be very jittery, and I imagine that you get a lot of locomotion sickness. Guys, go ahead and chime in. Maybe we'll start with Caine over here. Have you seen these things? Are you interested in this kind of aspect of using the Rift with, RCs and stuff?
Obviously, at this point, it's first attempts, so there's going to be these issues, so you can definitely pick those nits, but, my hat's off to people who try this sort of thing. And, to get the experience of soaring through the air with a copter, even if there's some jitter, that's going to be cool. So, again, my hat's off. I'd like to see that on, like RC cars as well. I imagine there's people doing that sort of thing, but, certainly the air ones are a really great way to integrate it.
Absolutely. Tyler, how about you?
I agree. I feel like, anything that developers can do to incorporate the Rift, in their things, in their products is awesome. And I feel like, just being able to like fly a plane somewhere and have, your kid like watch you fly the plane, is pretty awesome. And just the fact that like you can actually have like virtual reality experiences just by like hooking it up to like a product is pretty cool.
Totally. Jake, what do you think of this?
Yeah, look, I think this kind of stuff is really, really cool. I wonder, like, what are the applications, though? I mean, I'm not sure if you guys have read about Amazon Prime, so they'll be doing drone deliveries of stuff, but, like, actual applications in VR for, quadcopters and things like this. What is the usefulness of it, apart from a cool thing? Is
definitely
my question.
Tom. That's probably one of the top uses.
Yeah.
For sure.
Surveillance.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, I think that's an interesting discussion. I mean, obviously, it's kind of a hobbyist project at the moment, and, it's a bunch of guys out there just messing around, but, like, there has to be actual real-world applications for this stuff, and I wonder what you guys' thoughts are on that.
So I do think there are a number of applications, for this specific kind of thing. One of my professors in school, her big thing was drones, and one of the things that she would do would just go down to Peru and use her drones to map out, I guess, what would you call it, like geological sites, to kind of get the overlay, the map of where people were digging and excavating and whatnot. And I don't know, I haven't actually tried this thing, but I think it would be beneficial to actually be able to, look through the Rift and see, what you're looking at, to, have the head movement connected instead of having some clunky control box.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, you bring up a great point.
And yeah, going along with the military thing, I feel like if you were to have, like, say one of those planes that we just saw, but like up in the air for like spying on like another country, and you could see it through the Rift, virtual reality, that I think could be very cool if they do it right and everything.
Well, I think the most obvious application is the military. I mean, you put a gun on a quadcopter and then put a person in the Rift, and you have an unmanned drone, well, a manned drone, that has a camera on it that can then kill people. I mean, it's a pretty obvious application. I think, something that would be a little less kind of morally ambiguous would be like cave exploration, like exploring parts of, or even like deep underwater exploration where we can't go down there because of the pressures. It could give us an avenue of exploring places that we would have never had an opportunity to previously.
I'm kind of scared about the government, though. I don't know about you guys, but what if the government starts like spying on us?
We should
but also
this government.
Oh my gosh.
Spying?
Start our own virtual reality government. Govern everybody in virtual reality. Make everybody have to be in virtual reality and change their names to something stupid. Anyways, another use of it is also, we see in the news all the time that people are missing. So why not have like a drone that goes into like the Amazon to try to find people who are missing, and then see them in virtual reality, and or also if you have like someone who's like a criminal, you could try to find them. I don't know, just ideas.
Do all missing people go to the Amazon?
I mean, I don't know that just because there's Rift compatibility that it would make that sort of thing like a silver bullet solution. Like some of the sky high views would still be of use, I would think. So personally, I wouldn't worry about the surveillance thing.
It's probably more like if a drone was hooked up to some kind of facial recognition, then surveillance would be a possibility. But adding a person watching it in the Rift doesn't really add a whole lot more, of value, in terms of surveillance.
All right, next story and final story is how will VR affect kids? So we've kind of seen some hoverboards and Gameboys and things and the drones. So toys leading up to. What about the kids? Posted by Ugella. It's clear that VR is set to fundamentally change many areas of our lives, but how will it affect the kids is something I haven't thought about that much. Of course, there will be people against VR saying it will ruin our children, like Fox News is already doing, I believe, and obviously it's the parents' responsibility to restrict access to what VR experiences their children can have. But with VR being capable of providing extreme realistic simulation, this needs to be taken seriously. This is interesting and a topic that kids and all that I'm very, very interested in. Tyler, you being not a kid, but not quite 18, I believe. What do you think about that?
I really have a strong opinion. I really think that it's going to definitely transform education.
Again, growing up with technologies that just allow you to be creative. Minecraft's just a game that, in my opinion, does great things for kids, and the kids just love it, and they get to be creative. And I think the key part is the creativity. But
I agree.
Yeah. Let's hand it over to Caine and get your thoughts.
Yeah, so first thing, got the poll results. 17 thought it would have a positive effect, 1 negative, and 2 no effect. My own personal view is that every time there's an advance of technology, there's going to be a vocal, segment of the population who's going to claim it's going to ruin the kids. It's going to have a horrible effect. Will it? No, I don't think so. I remember seeing a funny comic linked to on Reddit that had this checkbox list that basically described all these general statements, hysteria about new technology, and you could apply it to VR, you could apply it to the first consoles, and you could even stretch further back. You could apply it to rock and roll. Is it going to ruin the kids?
Right?
There'd be hysteria, but exactly, and we really can't judge without the benefit of hindsight, so I don't think it's going to ruin anything. We'll adopt it, we'll integrate it, and we'll move on.
It's very interesting. Let me read a couple more comments before getting more opinions. This one's by Sprinkler. As a father, this kind of worries me too. I can't wait to eventually introduce my kids, one is 3 and the other one is 3 weeks, to VR, and I really think that it will have amazing benefits for education, but at the same time, some experiences seem to have easily as much impact as those that can be experienced on psychedelic drugs, which leads to the obvious question about the brain development. Jake, how about you? Do you think we're gonna, screw our kids all up with this crazy, brainwashing psychedelic technology?
I think this is a very, very, very interesting topic, and there's a couple of different points that I'd like to make. The first one is obviously education is going to open up like in a massive way. It's going to let people from a lower socioeconomic background be able to like view the same way that you can view like an MIT lecture on YouTube now. But imagine actually being able to be in the lecture room and ask a question, for example. But I think the more important thing is that VR is going to introduce a lot of ethical gray area in that, like, you could experience a murder simulator, and if you put a 7-year-old kid in front of a totally realistic murder simulation, what is that going to do to his psyche?
Yeah, gonna need some VR net nanny in there. So this is now the questions portion of the show. If there's anybody in the audience that would like to ask any questions, there's a couple microphones, one on each side. All right, I think that's Nate, so you usually use that avatar.
I think we've got a really interesting panel of people feeling out the first sort of version of that Metaverse concept. And like Caine said, I definitely think there are going to be competing platforms. It's not going to just be one giant place, but there probably will be a market leader eventually. I'm interested to know a little bit more, like, do you guys think that there is an early favorite in the game right now? Do you think that Facebook is going to get into this and blow everyone else away? And if so, if there is one that is the prominent platform, what do you see it kind of looking like? What sort of features would you want to have in it?
Great question.
I'm happy to start. I think that Facebook is definitely very well positioned to be the front runner. I mean, they have a huge reach, and there's a certain familiarity with the Facebook lingo, walls, posts, pokes, etc., that I think that could be fairly easily translated to VR. I imagine they'll be wanting to do a space that you can customize that's like your own room or like a house, and kind of travel in between those ways, and I could see that being very successful. I mean, it's tough to speculate. There's going to be a lot of different approaches, I think, but Facebook, I would think, would be an easy favorite for a leader.
Yeah, I agree with you, Caine. I do feel like High Fidelity with Philip Rosedale, I feel like if they were to partner with Facebook or something, they could definitely reach a lot of people. And Philip Rosedale, with his experience with Second Life, is definitely a good thing. And he has a great team of people right now, and they're working on a lot of cool things. Especially I don't know if you guys have seen the facial recognition software that he had at the SVVR meetup. I saw that on YouTube, and that just got me thinking, wow, if we could incorporate that into a social metaverse kind of thing, that would be pretty cool. So yeah, I definitely think High Fidelity has got something.
Graham, you want to chime in on the metaverse again?
Sure. So I, like everybody else, I do think Facebook is in a very, very good position. Just because of the resources they have at hand. All of us are working on small portions of the metaverse. You can't see my hand, but I have quotation marks around it. It's because they really are just so, small and in niche areas right now, and we are, small teams working on them. I will go back to my point saying that I think customization plays a big part, but, Facebook could easily do that by allowing you to create your own house, your own room, and whatnot. And it may come down to, if everybody in this room is, a developer or VR enthusiast, and we're probably a little, at the Facebook buyout, we're a little distraught and unhappy. So, we may be hesitant to go join the free Facebook MMO metaverse for fear of, what we're paying, to use this free software.
My bet is on Oculus. I really think that they've assembled a team that can actually create the metaverse. I mean, Carmack is the best 3D engine maker alive. They have Abrash now. They're hiring people constantly. how much money is there really in hardware? If they just produce Rifts, there's going to be other HMDs coming out, so it would make more sense from a business perspective to me for Oculus to produce the Metaverse. And now that they have Facebook, I mean, it's not like we'd even need to do 3D scans of our faces or anything to have normal avatars. Like, they can just take all the photos, do some kind of photosynth kind of thing on them, and then you have an avatar. Plus, they have all this data about you from Facebook, so they've got so much leverage. It just makes sense to me that Oculus would be the one to create the Metaverse with the kind of talent that they've acquired. And to be honest, I don't think that's a really bad thing. Like, there's always going to be kind of, smaller subsections of the Metaverse that are out there. People might not like to be on the massive, Facebook/Oculus Metaverse, but I have very little doubt that it's going to be something that comes out of Oculus as a company that will end up being what we consider to be the Metaverse. Feel free to prove me wrong, though. Like, it would be like very few people agree with me on this subject, so it's always interesting to hear different people's opinions.
Nate, did that answer your question, or any follow-up comments?
No, that's a very good. It is difficult to speculate at this point, but Facebook, they're poised at least. It's just a question of when will they announce something? When will we actually start hearing about it? So, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Nate.
So I've recently seen a debate talking about reminders of the reality when you are inside VR. Problem being, when you put on the Rift and the headphones, you are clearly separated from the reality, and that would be a problem for, let's say, some parents with young kids around, or because you couldn't hear your phone ringing. And my question is, will developers will have to, at some point in some games, have to put reminders inside the game that they have been, playing for hours, and have to take a step back into reality to check on things around them?
It's interesting. Good question. Caine.
With frivolous lawsuits being what they are, I think that a prudent developer really has no choice but to put these type of disclaimers and warnings in there. I think people should exercise some reasonable caution with these things, but these are all issues that have to be considered that video game developers didn't necessarily have to consider before. I mean, you do see some of that with Nintendo, though. Giving you reminders that you've been playing it for a while, give your eyes a rest. So it's not that it's without precedent, but I think VR adds so many different layers of possibility of different injuries that are not really possible in other situations, or even just like injuries by neglect because you're so wrapped up in something's happening in your place and you have no clue. So, I think developers are going to be concerned about that.
Interesting. Comments from anybody else?
Yeah. I feel like, for the time being, we do need to definitely have some kind of a, warning or disclaimer, or also maybe have, I think augmented reality is going to be something big. We all know Cast AR and stuff, but, obviously virtual reality is the, shielding you from the environment. Yeah, I don't know about kids, though, because I feel like kids' eyes are very sensitive, and I wouldn't want to expose the Rift to, like, someone really, really, like, young, like 3 years old,
Yeah, and I know that they do have a guideline about that under a certain age, your eyes are still developing, and, it's really not a great idea to expose them to the Rift. I mean, for all intents and purposes, if somebody just limits it to a quick demo, it's probably not going to cause long-term damage, but, if it was my child, I wouldn't personally risk it if there was any possibility of damage.
Thanks, Ruubick, for your question. All right, guys. Well, we're almost done. I want to go around the table, though, and have you guys plug anything and everything you'd like to. It's kind of your show at this point, so let's start on my right with Graham. Plug away.
Not really anything to plug. We have our normal Sunday VR chat meetups, which I always enjoy so much. I think we'll probably have a new build for that. hopefully, if Jesse's still awake, we got a little bit of work to do tonight, but we should have 050 out in a few hours, so that's pretty neat. But besides that, nothing much.
It's cool to hear, man. I'm glad you guys are working hard on it. Hey, Tyler, how about you? What do you want to plug?
There's a lot more coming in the future with my development. I will definitely have VR Open 0.5 up in probably the next month or so. I'm hoping to get that up there. A lot of cool things I'm putting into it, and yeah, I'm really excited for the future of virtual reality. I can't wait to get my DK2, and especially since my sensor's broken. But yeah, thanks for everything.
No problem. It's great having you on the show. And also, I don't know if you do host some sort of singing thing in VR. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I host Riftmax karaoke night every Thursday in Riftmax Theater, 8 to 10 EDT or MDT or PDT, whatever your time zone is. And you should definitely come out because it's a lot of fun. We have a great time, and if you like this event, then you probably will like that one. And you don't have to be a singer. You can come and, just watch other people perform and have a good time.
Yeah, it's like being at a music concert in a way, or just like an open mic, or at karaoke. Really, is what it is.
Yeah, and actually, my co-host is his name is Balago DZ, and he was actually a karaoke host before, so he has a really good voice, and he's the real deal. So you guys should definitely come out and join us.
Yeah, I missed the last few. I hope I can make the next one. And Jake, how about you? What would you like to plug?
Well, a couple of things, I guess. Melbourne Virtual Reality Meetups, they're once a month now. You can check that out at meetup.com/Melbourne Virtual Reality. We have a pretty awesome community here. And we're also going to be running some meetups in Brisbane next month, which is going to be the second big Australian VR meetup. And finally, I guess, Avria. So yeah, check out virtualreality.org.au. Membership applications for Avria are open. Probably is not that relevant to Americans, but for Australian VR developers, it's a great way to meet new people and get some kind of foot into the community and find some work and get some money and get some mentorship, things like that. So yeah, check that out. Thank you, Gunter.
Great. And what was the URL again?
That's virtualreality.org.au.
Excellent. And Caine, if you were going to send people to something, what would you send them to?
I suppose we're sitting in it. Mike has been working super hard on a few really exciting features, so I'll just rattle those off quickly. Web browser, that's going to be amazing for what that'll allow. Live streaming, flash games, so looking forward to that. We kind of mocked up a prototype for a whole new GUI, so that's going to come into place and be a lot more user-friendly, incorporate some easy to read icons, make things more intuitive, so that's coming. And we have some renovations that are going to boost performance quite a bit. And something that I'm really looking forward to is our lobby. We have a whole new scene that we're going to put in with a whole bunch of cool meeting places, so that's coming up quick. On the social end of things, we're going to have a bit of a stand-up comedy night, I believe, this coming week, so you should join us for that. Just a Redditor kind of showed some interest. We got in touch with him, and he's going to put it on Super Skip, so there'll probably be a post about that, and I guess just keep tuned for further developments from us.
All right.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate all this. So that wraps it up, and I'll see you guys next time on Virtually Incorrect with me, Gunter. It's been a pleasure. I want to thank all my guests and audience members, as well as the Riftmax team and Roger Essig for the great artwork that you see behind me. And thanks to all the authors and commenters of the stories that we brought up on tonight's show. And finally, thank you to the whole damn VR community. I love you guys. You guys rock. And that's it. Good night, everybody. Good night, everybody. It's been a show.
Good morning. Go to sleep, Teddy.
Yeah, get out of here.